Welcome back to our 5th season of Jablam Sports Hockey Podcast, everybody. You can follow us at Jablam Sports on Twitter, and of course, go to our website. New website's updated, jablamsports.com, Jablam sports.com. You can go directly to our podcast by clicking on podcasts and then Jablam Sports Hockey. I'm your host, of course, Peter Bojaranov. You can follow me on Twitter at Russian98, Russian 98. And today my co-host is
Logan Proskurniak.
And of course you can find Logan. Where can we find you on Twitter, Logan?
At Hoagie99. Hogey 99.
Yep, and he'll be helping me out every once in a while, co-hosting and of course doing the intro segments. So right now we're going to be doing a series of isolated friends episode. So it's where we're going to be talking about to great friends of mine, catching up, showcasing where they've been, working in their lives, talking some hockey, their favorite teams, and of course some classic hockey stories as well. How they've been spending their time, of course, during this isolation period with everybody dealing with the coronavirus pandemic going on. All right, what we have this episode, before we get to trending now topics that everybody's talking about with the 24 teams playoffs. In this episode, for guests, we have Matty Weeks, our buddy, who also works in television just like us, and he's an operations TV floater. He'll tell you more about that. And as well, Niilo, Autio, a good friend of mine. He's a senior graphics designer and art director and a Bruins fan. Boo. All right. So, Logan, let's get down to trending now. 2014 format. How do you feel about that?
I'm not a big fan of it, but at the same time, I don't really have a better solution for the way things played out. So it's kind of the best of what was available, I guess. But I mean, people were going to complain either way about like if it was 16 or 24 or even just 31. So,
yeah, I feel that people are going to complain either way if anything is happening. And I feel also that the league wanted to bring in more teams because it's kind of unfair for them to automatically be kicked out of the playoffs.
Yeah. But even so teams like Buffalo and Jersey, though, are still out of the playoffs, and they were 2 games in hand on Montreal with only 1 point behind or 2 points behind, I think. So they're still a bit upset over the whole thing, but you can't appease every team. You can't appease every city, unfortunately. So like I said, this is not ideal, but what else can you do?
I think one part that I kind of had a little bit of an issue with was, why not 20 teams? Because it seemed like those 20 teams still had a very good chance of making the playoffs. Whereas Chicago, Montreal, and some of those teams, the Rangers, they had like a 1 or 2% chance at making the playoffs. Yeah. It was ridiculous, the actual chances. And we've never seen a team with like even a 3% chance with only 10 games remaining make the playoffs. So now we're bringing these 2 teams in, and like, I don't know. I could keep going.
Teams, those are the teams that I think could also go a bit far. Chicago, they're a 12th seed team. They could beat Edmonton. They could make it to the second round, like with a Patrick Kane and a Taves. They still have a lot of their core players. Montreal, Carey Price can steal you a series, let alone a game. So those are teams that could, and now that both teams are all healthy and maybe have a bit more of a veteran presence too, it's like they could go far. I don't know how that would play out if a 12th seeded team in the regular season for their conference actually makes it to the Stanley Cup Finals. That would be, I'm not sure what that would be. Good, bad, or it would be something though.
Yeah. The only thing I could see is why they did the 24 teams is because of bigger markets. Markets like Chicago and Montreal that you've mentioned, they pretty much weren't going to make it at all, but bringing them in there brings in the money, brings in the fans. So that is pretty much what the league is trying to do. They're trying to recoup the money. They're trying to make sure escrow doesn't destroy the players and stuff like that as well. So I can't hate I can't hate on the idea tons. They're gonna play an extra 3 games, so why not even it out, Making this.
So with your 20-team format, would that just be the 2 or I guess the 4 lowest teams for each side?
Yeah.
Would then just do a 5-game playoff and then I guess.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Like the 20 teams, those teams, they all had a legitimate shot at making the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they have a mini play-in round to get to that wild card position. That's kind of what I was thinking about. So
it's the match would still be the same then. It would be Florida, Columbus, or it would be New York, the Islanders versus Florida, the Leafs versus Columbus, and then what was it? Vancouver, Minnesota, Calgary versus Winnipeg, and they just lose, I guess. Edmonton, Nashville get a bye. You lose Chicago, Arizona, Montreal, Rangers go home or stay home, and Pittsburgh. I mean, I got nothing bad to say about that either. I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But again, I understand why they're going with 24. So, they're bringing in the more teams. The thing is, I kind of like this now because a lot of people, and of course we know from owners, they've been talking about this for a few years now about expanding the playoffs.
Yeah, so I heard a little bit more about it this year than I have last 3 years, I guess. But
so during this pandemic that we're in, out of all years to do it, this year pretty much makes the most sense, right?
Yeah. And they get some data how they could do it. I guess the numbers would still be skewed because there's been no sports, so you can't really look at this year and it's like, look how many people watch. It's like, well, everybody watched because there's nothing else going on. Now what's going to happen though is that everything's going to come back and we'll have to pick and choose what we're watching again. So
yeah, we're gonna watch, and you know what? It's go big or go home, and the league is going big. So
yeah, I can commend that too.
Yeah. They're going to do the best they can. Before we go further on this topic, what do you think about the asterisk that everybody's saying? Like, oh, the team that wins this is totally going to get an asterisk beside their name as champions.
I don't quite believe that there'll be to win this. You still have to go through 20. Should be even harder now that there's 24 as opposed to 16 teams. The playoff format itself is still the same. There's still a best of 16. You just have an extra round in front of it. So you still have to win your way there. I would say it's a bit more of an asterisk that there was a break in between. So you don't now all these teams have like injured players coming back, and it's almost like the start of the regular season where it's like you can do well you can beat the better team in the first little bit because they were slow getting started, but that doesn't mean you're actually the better team. You just got a better start. You had better coaching, maybe. I don't know.
See, this is where the asterisk is 2 things for me. One, yeah, I'm on the player side where if the first or second round is 5 games, then that's not 16 wins. I want 7 games for every round. Then, in my opinion, there should be no asterisk at all, except for there should be one. Because whoever wins this, I commend them. I commend them for beating this many teams. I commend them for coming back from a huge break like this and then going on during everything that we're going through and everything else that they're going to go through mentally to win the cup this year.
Like, just to win that, there's not going to be any, if there's going to be very few, if any at all. So now you're playing to like a silent stadium during like playoffs too. Like if it's a hub cities, you might not be playing you'll never play in your home rink. Like there's just difficulty after difficulty, little like that is not insurmountable, but just the little things and then some big things as well that they have to battle through.
Yeah. So also talking about that, the play-in round, the playoff round. Logan, we all know we have our own playoff fantasy pool that we do. How does that work? How do the stats work?
Yeah.
Is there a play-in round stats? Is there a playoff stats? Is there a difference between that? Are you the MVP if you play the play-in round and you have way more points and you played really well in a play-in round and then not as great later on? Like, how does that work? Is that like regular season stats? Does your Draisaitl actually get the Art Ross? Because the play-in round technically is like a regular season, and he got no points during the play-in round, and the other players around him got way more points, so they technically deserve the Art Ross, right? How does that work?
Art Ross is staying with Draisaitl. I mean, as of the playoff pool, those are questions for our fearless commissioner. Oh wait, that's you to figure out. But yeah, I never even thought about the fantasy aspect of it. In that, like, now you gotta, even if for me, it's always been the picking side. How do you choose? You always try to choose the best team you think is going to go far, but then you try to get those outliers of like who's going to have a lot of points in the first round or a sleeper pick or something like that. Like, I don't know how you, and then with an extra 8 teams. That's just going to make it even weirder. A lot more goalies to go around, I guess. But
yeah, I think I already mentioned, and I'm going to tell you again. If we, when we do, of course, if it happens, the playoffs, I'm going to extend and have 2 extra rounds and 2 extra picks and extra rules. You must take at least 3 players from the play-in round and 3 players from the teams that are already in there. But again, I still don't know how the stats will work for if the play-in round is playoff stats. I feel that they kind of have to, and then technically this is all playoffs. The fifth round, or the opening play-in round, is a playoff round then.
Yeah, that's going to mess with some stats going in the history books, like 24 teams, how many players are there are per team. Not only that, I've heard that one of the reasons the AHL isn't coming back is so that they can have an expanded roster too. It's like Nick Robertson's on the Leafs now. He's a Leaf, right?
But so he's a defenseman.
Yeah,
it's a dangle joke. Go ahead.
So with all this expanded roster too, how do you pick for that? And all of a sudden, maybe they're in for a game or two, and that's their first playoff point. But it was the 5th round, and it shouldn't count, but it does count, and it's still going to be in the books. Like, it's.
There's so many other stipulations that are crazy. I've heard of players that could be UFAs or RFAs depending on how many games they play, regular season and postseason. And if the play-in round is technically not the postseason, then they should be a UFA or an RFA or not. That's crazy logistics, and lawyers are going to have to get involved with player contracts now. So that's really crazy.
Yeah, that's a whole other side. I'm okay with like lawyers. I don't even want to think about that. But
yeah. All right, so let's get into the 2 hub cities. Logan, which ones do you think it will be? Like, before we get in there, I think it'll just be ridiculous if the hub cities are like, I don't know, LA and Arizona or teams that aren't even in like the playoffs. Like, we know the Coyotes and Columbus and Chicago are in the play-in round, but if they don't even get to the play-off round, it'll just be weird that the hub cities are like the Staples Center, which is a great facility at LA Live, and maybe they deserve it just because it's there. And if Chicago is one of those cities, they put it there and they don't make it to the play-off round. I don't know. That's just odd.
I mean, that seems a bit fair to me, and then it's nobody's home ice advantage. But I think McDavid had a quote that's like, it doesn't matter if it's our own barn or not, it's going to be weird. There's not going to be any fans. It's good, there's still a pandemic going on, even if there is hockey. It's like, it won't feel like a home arena, essentially. But like, as for LA, it's like, that one's kind of an outlier. Not really an outlier. It's like, there's 0 California teams in the playoff, in the 24 roster or 24 teams. So that one's a bit odd, but meh. I mean, I'm okay with that. I can be okay with like an Arizona or a Chicago, and then them not making it as well. So
Yeah, I just think they should technically just choose the best facilities and not care
yes,
about anything else. Just the best facilities that will facilitate as two hub cities and helping out all the teams with what's going on in the pandemic and the training staff and the management and the players, the best accessibility and health wise to the players, no matter what the other scenarios are. That's how they should choose it.
yes, yeah. I'm not sure. I haven't. I think they've listed their criteria. They need a place to play, a practice facility, all the amenities, that kind of stuff. But I don't really know what they're actually going to choose based off that. Like what their reasoning for choosing, say, in Arizona over in Edmonton or a Toronto over a Dallas. Like, I have my opinion is like Toronto's going to be, unless the federal, they need the Canadian government to do something before they before they come to Canada. But I think Toronto will be one of the places that they have a hub city at. They just can't. The media doesn't want to really go anywhere. It's part of that, so they want it in Toronto.
Yeah, it's so difficult with Toronto with the pandemic. Not really like the numbers are not really going down in Toronto.
So, no, they're not. They're still lower than some of the American cities, but still, it's one of the higher ones. It's the highest in like Canada, right? So, yeah. But I still see them. They'll want to be there. They'll push for it, but the federal government has to give a little. So if the federal government doesn't give, I can see them still picking Arizona over Toronto. So,
yeah, the rules and regulations, especially with Canadians and the border and going back and forth with teams, that's going to be a bit of an issue too. And Canada is a little bit more stricter right now with that stuff as well.
Yeah. So it's either, I guess you could have it both in them both in Canada, which would eliminate the need for that 2-week quarantine, moving or going back and forth. So it could be in Edmonton, Toronto, or it could be Vancouver, Toronto. But it could also just as easily be like an LA. I don't think they would pick Columbus, but I don't know that for a fact. Vegas seems like the most plausible in that, like, there's facilities all over. There's empty every hockey team could have their own casino to stay in. They don't even need to get hotels. Like,
yeah, Vegas does seem like a very good place in terms of as many amenities as they could want. They're all there. They're all available. All right. Well, there's so many more things we can talk about, and we're going to kind of leave it at that for Trending Now this week. Next episode, we're probably going to get more into what hockey could look like, and maybe even in the future, we'll talk about those opening play-in rounds and what we think of which teams could be different and how rosters could be different. And teams like Columbus, they might be getting a lot of players back, and if so, they could be a somewhat decent threat with Tortorella behind the bench, right?
Yeah, they could get a good Tortorella can get them started good and early, and they can make it to the second, third round.
So
we'll go far if you get going early.
We'll talk more about that. All right, time to get into those interviews. Now on the podcast, we have my good buddy, Matty Weeks. Matt is an operations floater in television. He'll let us know more about that shortly. He's been an op floater at CP24 for Bell, and of course, a graphics operator for CBC, Rogers, the NHL Network, and Sportsnet. And he's finished school at Durham College and Humber College. Matty, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Peter. You must have my LinkedIn file opened up or something like that.
Don't tell everybody the hidden tricks of interviewing people. You can't tell them this. All right. So tell people, what is an operations floater?
Oh, I get asked this a lot because it's kind of, because no one really knows what it is. And I don't think my parents even still know what I do. And I've told them many times. But essentially, an operations floater is a jack of all trades. So I work in the control room at CP24, and as a floater, I fulfill all of the control room positions. So I switch, I do audio, I do graphics, I do video playback. I also spend time on the newsroom floor, miking up guests and heading cameras and operating cameras and helping the talent and all that sort of stuff, and other duties as required, which could be anything really, from getting water for the anchor to getting stuff from the printer for the producers or things like that. So really, it's essentially everything.
Yep, our roles really have changed now in television in terms of being one position or another. We're pretty much a jack of all trades for having to know every single position, from lighting to audio to switching to camera, and of course the scrap work and assisting every single person out there as well.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and before that you were doing graphics. So explain to people how graphics works and what kind of cool graphics you've already done, of course, for sports and so forth.
Well, I became a graphics operator before even knowing really what it was. Because when City News Channel launched, they posted all these different job positions, and there was only a couple that I was really qualified for, and graphics operator being like the base position. I decided to throw my hat in the ring for that, and lo and behold, that was the job I got, was the weekend graphics operator position. So I began doing that, and at City, it's different everywhere you work, depending on like in news, you're more of an operator where you're just sort of pushing buttons. But if you work in sports or something like that, you have a little more hands-on responsibility for creating the graphics and inputting the data and building like templates and stuff like that. So at City, I was basically just pressing spacebar to advance the graphics, and I would from time to time write in the information that was going in the headline. When I graduated to Sportsnet and NHL Network for that matter, I was importing graphics and building boards with stats and standings and all that sort of stuff. So graphics operators, so when you're watching TV, it's anything from the little headlines at the bottom of the lower thirds at the bottom of the screen, or full page boards that you see with graphics and pictures and font, or animated graphics and video loops in the background. So the operator is in control of all the graphics that are on TV. And yeah, so that's sort of an explanation.
So how come you never made any cool graphics of like the Leafs winning the Stanley Cup or crazy stats and then leak that on the internet? Come on, Matty. Come on. You got to do something like that. That's cool.
Well, I do as I'm told, and I don't like to lie.
All right. Before we get into more of your cool stuff that you're into, and of course hockey, which we will get to, how was it growing up in the Schwa? And of course that is Oshawa for people that don't know, in Ontario.
Well, I was born and raised in Oshawa. I spent the first 24 years of my life there in the same house that I was born in. And when I was there, I wanted to leave. And when I got out was when I finally sort of started liking the city more. Like I guess that's probably common for many people. They all, wherever they're born, they always find flaws and make fun of it and say it's crappy and whatever. But then when you leave, you realize, oh, well, that's my home. So you start to appreciate it a little more, and you realize that it's actually not so bad. But maybe that is because I'm only there once or twice a month. So maybe it's better in small doses. But no, it was good. I mean, I had a great family. I lived close to my school, so I was always within walking distance. I had a lot of good friends. I mean, there was enough to do there, I guess. I don't know. I spent a lot of my teenage years with going to local concerts and drinking, underage, of course, and playing sports. So, and we had the Oshawa Generals, and I was a huge Generals fan from the time that I knew what hockey was until now. I still follow them from Hamilton. So, yeah, I was fortunate. I liked Oshawa. I still like Oshawa. I like it.
That was actually going to be my follow-up question, was the Generals. So who was your favorite player growing up, and is there anybody that you're still following, maybe in the NHL, as us gamers like to call it, NHL, that played for the Generals?
Well, the Gens won the Memorial Cup. I believe it was 1990. So I was only 5 years old at the time. So I was too young to really even remember it. And that's like obviously when Eric Lindros was huge there. So I missed his golden years there. But once I was old enough to start following them and actually know what was going on, the big players for me were like players like Mark Savard and Brian Allen. Mark Savard was my favorite for a long time. And then when I started to get older, my teenage years, obviously it was around the time when John Tavares caught on with the Jennies there. So I watched him in his, like, the whole time he was in Oshawa. I went to a lot of games, so I got to see him play there, which is pretty spectacular because he's one of the all-time greats on that team, obviously. What was the other question? Do I still follow them? I always keep an eye on the Generals alumni in the NHL, and it's funny because a lot of them, for whatever reason, ended up on the Islanders for a time there. Like they had Del Zotto, they had Tavares, they had Michael Neuvirth, they had Cal Clutterbuck. He's still there. Like at one point, there was 4 or 5 of them on the Islanders. So I mean, it was almost like they were the Islanders in the NHL. So I have a soft spot for them. Up until, of course, they started booing Tavares and making our lives a living hell when they went to Nassau there. Now I kind of hate them. But
So, which arena is better, the Schwa, the Generals arena, or Nassau?
I've never been to Nassau.
Yeah. Well, it feels like a barn. I've been there. But it feels very homely. It actually, when you go there, it feels like you're at an OHL arena. It feels like you're in a small community, and kind of like Joe knows Dave, and I don't know, it just kind of has that old feel, but also it feels like everybody kind of knows each other too on Long Island as well, like an OHL barn.
Well, having all the bells and whistles doesn't necessarily make a great arena. Like it's the atmosphere, right? And from watching games there on TV, like it's loud as hell there. So I mean, and that's what makes an arena great, is like the atmosphere and all the fans and the loudness in the arena and the chanting and all that stuff. So it sounds like it's a great time when people go there. And I know a couple people that have been there, you included now, and they said it was amazing. So
yeah, I actually got to see. That was quite a while ago now. It was Kyle Okposo's first NHL game. So it was, about 10, 11 years ago. So, but it was great. It was a great game. I think them versus Atlanta or whatever, and it was like a blowout game, but it was really exciting, and the fans were in it, and they were in it for, like, as soon as I got into the arena, it like they were just like, oh, and everybody's like tossing beers around and like giving high fives. I'm like, I know I came here like 2 minutes late into the game, but man, this place is chaotic. But I liked it. It was pretty cool. It was actually pretty cool.
So pretty much the polar opposite of the Scotiabank Arena.
Yeah, a lot of suits for our Maple Leafs. That's for sure.
For sure.
So it is what it is. All right. So with everything going on right now, how are things going in isolation for you and Diana? And do you guys have a habit going on, or has things kind of slowed down? How's the pace?
Well, we're both still working full time, so that hasn't changed, although my schedule has changed a little bit. I'm working less days and more hours per day, but I have more time off, more time at home, which has been good. So I'm a fairly new homeowner. I've been here for a year and a half almost now, so there's still lots of stuff to be done. So I've been spending a lot of time in the backyard doing projects out there and getting stuff done around inside the house as well, just cleaning up and organizing and hanging things and fixing things. So that's been good. But I've also had a lot of time to myself, obviously, because I can't go and see family or friends or go out or do anything like that, or play sports for that matter. So I've been picking up some old hobbies and learning some new ones. I've started playing a lot of cards again, like poker mostly, but other card games as well, just getting back into that because I used to play a lot and I kind of missed it. I picked up the guitar a few times, but it's since gone back into the corner collecting dust. I have also been. What else have I been doing? I've been reading a lot more and watching. Obviously watching Netflix a bunch too. But yeah, just keeping myself busy.
And at work, what procedures at Bell have kind of changed, or have you noticed change and have been laid out over there, especially with guests or non-guests, and then in terms of like inside the control room and stuff?
Well, as far as guests go, we don't have any. There's no longer guests coming into our
Yeah.
studio.
Yep.
As far as protocols and all that stuff go, always wiping down your station after you change positions. There's Purell stations all over the building. In the control room, there's actually plexiglass dividers up between certain workstations where maintaining 6 feet distance isn't possible. We've also limited the amount of crews working in the control room per day. So there's four crews, 2 night crews, 2 morning crews. Normally there's 3 crews per day, but now we've scaled back to 2 crews. So now we travel with one other morning crew. We haven't seen the other 2 crews for over 2 months now. And the same sort of goes with the reporters and anchors. They've split up into indoor and outdoor crews. So there's a certain set of reporters that only work outside and haven't been in the building since. And there's certain reporters and anchors that only stay in the building so that they're limiting contact with others and whatnot. And that same with writers and producers. They've actually got a bunch of people working from home, as well as working at an offsite location at the building, but in a different building, like on the property anyways, is what I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So not as many people in the building, and just sanitizing, washing hands, and all that jazz.
Yeah. Times are changing. Hopefully we get to some kind of normalcy in the near future. All right. Tell us about your secret society. What is the Toronto Brown Backers? How big
Toronto
is...
Brown
Yeah, go.
backers.
Sorry?
Toronto Browns backers.
Yeah.
Not backers.
Browns Backers.
Browns backers. Well, we are Canada's largest NFL fan club. Founded in 2014. I've been a Browns fan since I was 18. I went on, long story short, I went to Cleveland a couple times in college, my first go round, and I just sort of fell in love with the team there. I bought a hat as a souvenir and decided, hey, what the hell? I'll become a Browns fan, because I wasn't cheering for anyone at the time. And Cleveland was a pretty cool city, so that started it all. And then how many years later? I'm 35 now. 17 years later, I'm still a Browns fan. Still haven't seen them make the playoffs. But a few years ago, I was on Facebook and I found a Toronto Browns fan page. It had like 30 members, and there was only one other guy who was actively posting in the group. So naturally, we just started conversing back and forth. And I think he said, hey, we should meet up for watch a game sometime in Toronto, because we both lived in Toronto, obviously. So I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. So then we met and we watched the game, and the Browns lost, obviously. And we bonded, and he's like, we knew that there was a Toronto Browns Backers Club. Like, Browns Backers Worldwide is a pretty large organization. They got clubs all over the world, but there was one in Toronto that hadn't been active for a few years. And he's like, you know what? I'm gonna contact them and try to take over the club. And I'm like, okay, sure. And at the time, I didn't really believe. Not that I didn't believe him. I just was like, okay, sure, whatever. Like, go for it. And then he did. And then he's like, I want you to be my my partner. I'm like, what? I'm like, yeah, I want you to be my vice president. I'm like, okay, what do I do? I'm really nervous, and I didn't know if I could live up to the billing, because I mean, being the vice president of anything is kind of an important responsibility, and I didn't know how involved I really wanted to get, like, because I had a lot going on in my life at the time as well, and I didn't know if I could live up to his expectations. But I followed him around, and we created quite an impressive club. We started our first meeting was at this little sports bar on College Street, which doesn't exist anymore. And we had 7 people turn up for our first meeting. And now on a regular game day, we get crowd sizes of around 50 to 100 people. And the most we've had for like bigger events, like home opener or Super Bowl parties, we've had close to 150 people there. So, and our club size has actually grown. We're just shy of 700 members now, which is pretty amazing. And all the time, like I'll be out walking around downtown Toronto, I'll have like a Browns hat on or Browns shirt, and I'll see someone that has a Browns hat on, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? You're a Browns fan? Oh yeah, you hear about the Toronto Browns backers? And I give them my card, and then like the club grows. Like there's so many Browns fans out there. Like you think that, I mean, because we're so bad that no one will cheer for them, but they're out there, man, and there's a lot of them, and they're all super nice people, and it's really it's a great community we formed. Like there's no other fans like Browns fans, and it's sort of similar to Leafs fans because they've endured so much pain and losing over the years, and so have the Browns. And misery loves company, right? That's how the saying goes.
Yep. So you're like crying almost every week, for 2 different sports.
I think being a Toronto fan, a fan of Toronto sports, has really geared me up for my Browns fandom. It prepared me for what I was going to have to go through.
Amazing. That is truly amazing. So you can find out more information about Browns backers on Twitter. They're at TO Browns Backers, BROWNSBACKERS. And you can go to the website. I believe it's fans.clevelandbrowns.com, right?
I'm not sure what that site is, but we operate out of Facebook. So we have a group page, and we have I guess it's called a fan page. I don't know. There's 2 different pages. There's one page where it's just like you go there, and then we have a link that says join our group. And the group is actually where we do all of our business and have our conversations with our members. So just search Toronto Browns Backers on Facebook. And we also have Instagram at the same handle at TO Browns Backers.
Sweet. And you can check out Matty's helping out with that cool club for Cleveland Browns fans. So if you are a big fan of the NFL or Cleveland Browns, check it out. I think
if you don't have an NFL team yet, why not be a Browns fan?
There you go. All right. So we've talked about your club. Have you heard any current update or news with the NFL? Like, how are they going through everything?
Well, they're sort of fortunate in the fact that their season isn't due to start till September. So they're sort of playing the waiting game, I suppose. But I think now training facilities are open and players are allowed to go, I believe. But training camp wouldn't really get underway until July anyways. Right now, it'd be like mini camps and like OTAs. So there hasn't been a lot of development as far as I know. To be perfectly honest, since this whole pandemic started, I've kind of dropped out of the sports world. Like I'm just sort of waiting for things to go back to normal. Like I used to watch, like my routine used to be, I come home from work at 12:30. I'd open a beer. I'd watch Sports Center or Sports Center with Jay and Dan or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And that's how I get my updates. And then obviously I'd read articles online every day at work and watch videos and stuff. But ever since the pandemic hit and there's nothing going on, I just can't be bothered to read articles about, we're still waiting for stuff to go back to normal. Still can't play sports. And it just drives me mad. So I've sort of lost touch with what's actually happening in the world. So maybe you can bring me up to speed.
Well, you got to check out the Korean Baseball League. It's fabulous.
I wanted to, but they're not showing it in Canada. I don't have ESPN.
Oh, I think they have. I think they started putting games on TSN, and you can catch them on the internet as well.
Oh, if it's on TSN, I will start watching that.
Yeah. And then, of course...
I really wanted to start watching it, though. I almost joined a Korean Baseball Fantasy League.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how much I miss sports.
Yeah, I'll catch the occasional game. It's actually pretty interesting. And I like it how they changed the fans in the background, because like one day it was like the Pokemon characters. And I'm like, so I was like, oh, this is fabulous. I'm just tuning in to watch some cool baseball and seeing what are they going to change in terms of who's watching the game with different weird cardboard characters or plush toys. All right.
Oh, man. I miss baseball.
Yeah, exactly. I miss it too, and we might be coming back with hockey maybe in August if it does come back. So we're both fairly big fans of the Maple Leafs. What was your biggest memory, before we get into what's going on right now, what was your biggest memory growing up as a Maple Leaf fan?
Oh, easily the 92-93 season.
Yeah.
Doug Gilmour and Maple Leaf Magic.
Yeah.
And the crushing conference finals loss.
Do you
That's one of my only early memories of the Leafs. I remember it so vividly and just crying like a little baby when they lost. I don't think I slept at all that night.
Same here. Same here. I hated Gretzky for so many years after that.
And Zazzle takes the puck away from Robitaille. Robitaille gets it back center. They score! Gretzky scores! And the Los Angeles Kings defeat the Maple Leafs 5-4. They're still alive on that Gretzky goal at 1:41 of overtime.
I didn't have the same hate that everyone had for Gretzky. I just the how it ended just upset me so much. And man, how cool would it have been if we actually had won that series and gone on to play the Canadiens in the Stanley Cup final, right? Like that would have been, well, unless there's some sort of magical realignment, that would have been the last time that would have been possible for the Leafs and Habs to meet in the finals. So, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Talking about realignment, how do you feel about the proposed 24-team playoffs?
I like it. I mean, what was there? Was there like 12 games left in the season when everything shut down?
Yeah, and maybe not even.
I mean, there's a lot of people that I've talked to that don't like it because, well, these teams shouldn't have been in the playoffs. But I mean, there were bubble teams. Like you don't know what's going to happen in the last 12 games, and this isn't a regular year. So I think to include the bubble teams and have a sort of different playoff format for this year is kind of cool. And sure, if you want to put an asterisk beside it or whatever, but when it all comes down to is every single team that's in it is going to be playing their fucking ass off, part of my language.
Mm-hmm.
And they all want to win the cup. And I can guarantee you that any team that makes it to the final wins the cup is not going to put an asterisk beside it. Like, yeah, like it'd be weird if the 24th ranked team goes all the way to the final, but to do that, you have to go through all of the top teams in the league. And that's no small feat. So yeah, maybe they wouldn't have made it under regular circumstances, but these are not regular circumstances. And well, the fact that we even are going to have a chance to finish this season, or the playoffs for that matter, is as long as we get that, I'll be happy. And I have no problem with the format. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, talking about the asterisks, I can't even say that word properly. I think they deserve to have that because of how much more they will accomplish. The mental fatigue on top of the physical fatigue of coming back and not playing and not training really up to their potential that they could for 3-4 months, and then playing such a physical sport that is hockey, and then competing with 24 other teams for the Golden Stanley Cup is right. It's obviously silver, but yeah, but I think it's like an extra achievement that they've had to make it there. The extra procedures that they're going to have to go through every single day, and the testing and isolation maybe from family members. That's a lot of mental fatigue as well to do that, to go all the way. So the only little issue I might have is if they don't go 7 full games for those opening rounds. And if they go shorter, then it's not like a 16 wins for the cup thing.
You mean for the play-in or just for the after the play-in? Yeah,
they're talking about maybe the first round or second round of the playoff round after the play-in round. Still, maybe only being 5, like 3 wins. 3 wins, 5 games. So.
Yeah. I think I'd like to see a 7-game series, but if in the essence of time and safety and all that stuff, if they can't do 7 games, I guess we'll be fine with it. And really, if it's 5 games, it's not like there's going to be one team with a home advantage, because they're going to be playing in a neutral building and everyone's going to be playing there. So they're not going to have the home ice advantage with the crowd and all that stuff. So that would be the concern for me if it was a shorter series, I think. But without that, everything is what it is.
Yeah. All right, so let's get back to our Maple Leafs. If they do come back, how do you think the Leafs will fare? I believe they're matched up against Columbus first. So how do you feel that they could do against Columbus? And maybe it could be a healthy Columbus. And then going forward, if they beat Columbus, maybe they have to play again the Bruins. But we don't even know the format yet for those top teams. They might mix it up, and they might be playing a different team in the next round.
Well, I'm just thankful that it's not the Bruins in the first round because they've sort of given us fits these last few years.
Yeah.
Columbus, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't looking forward to this matchup because I think at least have a good chance. But at the same time, I can't discount Columbus and everything like that they've accomplished. I mean, they did bounce the Lightning in 4 games last year, I believe. And, anyone could beat anyone. So, but like I said, as I said, it's not Boston, so I like her chances a lot. And as for health of the teams, it'll be weird because every team will essentially have the chance to get fully healthy before this thing even kicks off. And even players that were once deemed out for the rest of the season now have a chance to even be back and ready for the playoffs. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all shakes out.
Yeah, for sure. I think Columbus was one of the teams that were hit pretty hard, especially down the stretch with some big players on their team out. So they could be fairly healthy coming back too. So watch out, Leafs, because the Blue Jackets might actually be 100% to go. So we'll see what happens.
It'll be strange to see how all the players get back into game shape and whether the intensity is there right off the hop. Like, it's going to be hard to get up for games, especially with no fans in the stands. Like, I don't know how they're going to do it. Like, I think they're going to realize playing these games just how much the fans mean to hockey as a whole, just like the atmosphere and everything. Like, it's going to be weird.
Yeah, it really is going to be weird, but I think it might be kind of unique and interesting at the same time. If they have maybe more mics on the boards or just more mics around, you can hear the players talking, maybe the referees talking with the players. It might be very different, but also very interesting and
I think
pretty cool.
If I'm watching at home, I don't think I would mind not hearing the crowd or the music or anything like that. Like, I think being like, as you said, being able to hear the on ice sounds and players and all of that, just hearing the game is going to be pretty interesting. You'll have to pick up a lot more. You still have the commentary, obviously, so I'll be there. But I know some people that like had like surround sound, and like sometimes they'd actually turn off like all the commentary and all that stuff just to hear like the on ice sounds. So I mean, I don't know, it'd be cool. It'll be like playing bantam hockey with just parents in the stands. Like, you're not going to hear anything except for the game.
Yeah, they should. Cool. They should do like some crazy lottery where you can win a ticket, and there would be like just the craziest fans, and there's like 2 in every section for their team to play. That'd be insane if they did something like that. That'd be pretty cool. I don't know.
It's not a terrible idea. Why not, right?
Yeah. Why not? Why not? All right.
Or you can be like a capitalist and sell those 1 ticket per section at outrageous cost. Okay, you want to sit in section 103? That's going to be $10,000, and then there you solved your money problem.
Yeah.
Somebody is going to pay it.
And some of the proceeds could go to, some of the stuff that's going on in our world today. Yeah. So
there you go. See?
Yeah.
$1 million idea.
Yep. There we go. All right. So going back to the Leafs, who is your current favorite player on the Leafs on this current roster that we have going on?
Oh man, I've never been good at picking favorites.
Oh yeah.
Favorite bands, favorite records, favorite TV shows. I've never been able to do that.
Is there a certain
my favorite Leaf of all time was Doug Gilmour and Felix Potvin. But on the current team, there's a lot of players that I do like. I don't know if I could pick a favorite. I might have, just for the sake of you asking me, I might have to say Frederik Andersen, just because I was a goalie growing up, and I still love to play. I don't play net anymore, but I think he's fantastic. He's like, we've been, ever since like the Belfour and Cujo years, we've been searching for that next goaltender, and I just think he's a rock back there. Like, he steals so many games for us, and just having that talent between the pipes can take you far in the playoffs. So without him, I think our team would be lost on many nights.
Yeah. Yeah, he does.
He's got such a calm demeanor too, and he just seems like a good person. Like he's not too cocky or anything like that. He's just he's pretty well grounded and all that. So I like him.
I think
there you picked a pillar. How about that?
Yeah, I think he is pretty steady, Freddie, just like the Raptors have in Van Vliet. I think.
Yeah.
I think Anderson's been a pretty steady guy in between the pipes for them. How do you feel? Maybe his play has been this year, as some people kind of feel like it hasn't been as steady, Freddie, the first couple of years with the Leafs.
I feel like he's always started seasons off really slow, and he'll start with a lot of bad games. But then after a couple months, he gets into midseason form, and he's pretty much steady the rest of the way. I mean, everyone's going to have a bad game here and there, but I haven't had a problem with this game whatsoever. I think a lot of his problems this year was just perhaps being overworked and knowing that the guy behind you wasn't going to win games when you weren't in the net. So maybe that put a lot of pressure on him to play so well when he was on the ice. But now with Jack Campbell on the team, in the limited amount of time that I've gotten to watch him, because he was in Dallas and LA before. I didn't really get to watch a lot of his game, but I remember him from the juniors and international competition. He was always a well-regarded prospect, and just being able to see him more regularly now, I'm really confident in our goaltending situation, because I really do believe that if he was forced into action for an extended period of time, that he could handle the load and he could steal some games for us as well. So having that 1-2 punch is good, and I think it'll help Freddie in the long run.
Yeah, I kind of like Campbell back there, backing him up, and he does look like he's a pretty solid goaltender as well as a very good cheerleader, it seems like.
Yeah, he's a pretty funny guy. I don't watch a lot of social media garbage, but I saw he did like a Twitch video with his wife or girlfriend or whatever she was, and they're dancing around in their hotel room. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. All right, Matty, thank you for coming on the podcast. It was a great help for you to come on and tell us your role in the TV world, as well as being a big fan of the Browns and the Leafs.
Yes, thanks for having me on, and I'm sorry it took me so long to agree to do this. I'm bad at that, but I am glad I've done it now, and maybe now that I've done it, got my feet wet, maybe I'll come back on again in the future if you'll have me.
Yeah, that was good. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, and go Bulldogs.
It was really great talking with Matty. I enjoyed listening to him talk about his club, the Toronto Browns backers. Wow, I really didn't know how big it was. Even worldwide. Amazing. So many clubs. He's really grown this biker gang chapter in Toronto. Good stuff, Matty. Alright, up next, we're going to be talking to Niilo Autio. He'll talk about his work in graphic design, as well as being a Bruins fan raised in South Porcupine, Ontario, just outside of Timmins. All right, today on the show, we have Niilo Autio, my good friend. He's a senior graphic designer and art director currently at Evoke Solutions. Previously, he was at Overdrive with my buddies Jay and Joey, and he finished school in Conestoga College. Do you remember, Niilo, when you won third prize at Conestoga for best wine by design competition?
Oh yeah, I feel like I'm talking to Nardwar. You're digging back in the archives. Yeah. No, I mean that's yeah. It was a student project. I mean it's like I think they offered it up to everyone as a it was like an Ontario-wide thing to design a label for Oakville Ridge wines, and I kind of left mine to the last minute, as I did with a lot of projects, focusing mainly on the curriculum projects. And I just sort of cracked something off, and it sort of just worked really quickly. And I ended up getting third place. And it was pretty awesome because, I mean, there's a lot of little competitions that kind of happened throughout the school year. But, I never won them. And I was always kind of peeved because I always thought I had, pretty good concepts. But, hey, you win some, you lose some. So, but, yeah, that's definitely one from way back.
Yeah, Niilo is a big fan of the Bruins, and we'll get it, to that later on. as we delve more into Niilo's life here. So you went to Conestoga. You were born in South Porcupine, Ontario, small town like outside of Timmins.
Yeah, I grew up there. I was actually born in Edmonton. The family moved back to Timmins, area where my dad kind of grew up. Basically raised there, and small town. Yeah. Lots of free time, So I mean, it was, and we lived kind of a little bit outside of town, like just off the edge of it. So it was a little harder to kind of, play road hockey with some of the other kids, So we did a lot of stuff like drawing and like creative things, kind of just to keep ourselves busy. And so that's probably led to career in graphic design, kind of visual kind of stuff and communications, that kind of thing. So yeah, but those are the days. Played a little bit of minor hockey there. I mean, I wasn't very good. Really just kind of focused on my slap shot because I was never going to be as fast as those other guys who had been playing since they were, little guys. But I kind of joined late. But always loved hockey. As I'm getting older, I'm not watching as much, but, still in there, still deep rooted. So.
Yeah. All right. So this is the Isolated Friends series that I'm doing with bringing back the 5th season of Jablam Sports Hockey. How are things going right now? How is isolation for you?
I mean, for me personally, everyone's different. It's actually not that bad. I'm kind of an indoor cat, like I like doing kind of indoor things a lot. But I've found that certainly now that we aren't supposed to be outside, that I'm really appreciating it a lot more. Just sort of going on like walking trips and stuff like that around the neighborhood. And I find it really nice. But overall, we're doing okay. Sarah, my wife, is taking the brunt of it because she's got to full-time look after our 2 kids, Winnie and Archie. And yeah, so that's really tough. So she's doing the best she can, but it's just tough to have that much exposure to them. Like usually we have them in daycare and stuff like that, and she's usually working. So yeah, we were just doing the best we can and trying to get through day by day. And but fortunately, I've been able to work full time from home. So there hasn't been any kind of financial strain like other people, unfortunately, have been experiencing. So that's kind of taken some of the heat off. So it's really just trying to get through every day and best we can,
Yeah, it is a day by day thing. I'm going to play this clip here. You might not be able to hear it. 9, I Want It That Way was the intro kind of part to it. And you did, I want to go back to, before we get into that and other sitcoms, you did name your son Archie?
Yes.
Does that have anything to do a little bit with Archie comics? I know you're a big sitcom fan and a bit of a, anything like that.
Yeah, definitely. It's I think the hardest part about finding names is like having it work with your last name. And so having a name like Autio or Autio, as it's kind of more pronounced, I guess, for Finnish people. It's like you want to have something that's not too sing-songy. So we went through dozens and dozens of names, and it's just like, for Winnie, that was tough enough, the first one. Mm-hmm. But it ended up being one that we both we liked the name, and it sort of worked okay with the last name. And same with Archie. It was kind of like we went through a bunch of names, and it was just one of those things, just like, well, how about Archie? And there wasn't a whole lot of arguments against it. Yeah. But who knows how it's going to play out for them in in school and what kind of name calling they'll be associated. But who knows? Yeah. Certainly I loved Archie comics growing up, and I loved drawing and stuff. And I sort of like how kind of cheesy and corny they are and stuff. It's just sort of lighthearted kind of goofiness, and so I just kind of always liked the name, and it's one of those names that everyone knows how to spell. Yeah. But it's not overly popular, although there's been a couple Archies that I've heard of since, so maybe it'll catch on.
Yeah. So talking about sitcoms and everything, I know you and I were big fans of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. How do you like the show, and how do you think about like the new transition with I guess now they're not on Fox, right? They're on NBC?
We always have been watching it either through not necessarily legal means, because we cut the cable ages ago. So the older seasons, of course, are on Netflix. So if we have left it and forgot about it, then we'll kind of catch up on it there. But I mean, sometimes we've downloaded episodes and stuff and watched them that way. So I mean, that kind of thing I never really noticed. In terms of the quality of the show, it seems on par. It seems to be almost getting better and better. I just love the writing. It's so fast, and just the level of goofiness is just right up my alley. So yeah, no, I love it. It's great. We both do, and it's one of the shows that Sarah and I both enjoy too. So because we have a little bit of different tastes, like she likes actual kind of crime shows and documentaries about crimes and that kind of thing, and I just like, oh god, it's a little bit heavy for me, but yeah, we both love it.
Yeah, what is your favorite sitcom ever?
That's a tough one. Like The Office is just so consistently good. That's a great one. I mean, growing up, I loved The Simpsons. Workaholics was not the best show, but I liked, again, it's like a return to kind of like younger zaniness, and stuff that maybe I've missed from my youth as I kind of get a bit older. But Broad City, I loved that one too. And more recently, and I really liked The Good Place. That one was really, really fun. And it's that kind of show where there's a little bit of something unique about it, but then it's just kind of zany and it doesn't take itself too seriously. I kind of like that. I even find like Ricky Gervais' stuff is almost now it's starting to get a little bit kind of dramatic and stuff, and there's enough kind of drama in real life and kind of sadness, especially as things are kind of a little bit tricky these days. So I kind of like to have a bit of escape usually, but yeah, that kind of stuff.
Speaking of escape, I know this one thing that you always like to do, especially you were posting on your Facebook, is about beer. And Niilo even made his first post. I think, what did you write? How many beers I wanted to drink before I died?
Yeah. I think it says drinking as many as I can before I die from drinking too many, I guess, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was just, I've always liked beer, it's the first thing I kind of picked up, when I was too young to be drinking. I think just over time, I sort of wanted to just try new kinds of beer. So I started with other kinds of European lagers that, didn't see so much up north where I grew up. They kind of stuck to more traditional stuff, just, bars and pubs, that kind of thing. But yeah, now for me, it's really great because there's an explosion of craft brewing which has been going on for much longer than I've been getting into it. But I just, not even from a scientific standpoint, just wanted to try more beers. And then I started posting them on Facebook just so I could kind of keep track on a bit. So regardless of where I was, I knew I'd always have an online repository. And, if someone else was interested in what I thought about it, then I usually would start to write a little line about if it was really awful to like avoid it, or if it was really good. Try to get a little bit funny with it sometimes, but really that's mainly what it was all about. Not to be too scientific, but just to kind of have a record of it. And but then it just sort of got too crazy. I'm almost near 1,000 beers, and so I couldn't keep up with the comments because I'd be posting 30, 40 beers at a time, which would accumulate over time. So yeah. But yeah, I still love beers, and I'm still trying to reach that 1,000. So once I get there, who knows? Maybe I'll slow down a bit. Yeah.
And have you found one or a few that are like your top ones, your favorites?
And that's funny because it changes over time too. There was a period where I was really into those high potency Trappist ales, run typically from Belgium, that kind of thing. But then, and I couldn't get into the hoppy beers, and then eventually I kind of did after trying. Eventually, I grew a taste for them, and now that's kind of what I usually drink. That, and then sour beers, which I also really enjoy. So that's kind of where I'm at, and there's tons of really great ones, but. I just like to keep trying new ones, even though there's some old favorites. I really love the brewery from Hamilton called Collective Arts. I really like their stuff. And locally in Toronto, Bellwoods is phenomenal. So is Halo. There's a bunch of really great breweries. My friend Mike, he's a phenomenal brewer. He's been doing it for a few years. And his stuff is among the best that I've ever tried. So it can come from anywhere. I've been really surprised sometimes with breweries that I thought weren't very good, and then they put out a beer and you're like, holy smokes, it's delicious. So it's just a fun pastime. It's something to talk about, and it's a unique way to kind of taste different flavors of the world without getting into anything like super expensive like scotch or brandies that are, can get really into like the thousands of dollars in some cases. So yeah, just kind of a fun pastime.
And so now in isolation, is there like a go-to beer that you have, or are there beers like obviously you might not be able to get right now that you really want?
Yeah, I really have been drinking a lot of Mad Tom IPA, which is from oh my god, I can't think of it right now. Drawing a blank. Anyways, local, and I've just been drinking it for years. It's really good IPA. It's kind of on the pioneer side of things, so it's kind of suits my palate. And I mean it's readily available all the time, so I kind of find myself drinking that a lot. And then whenever I see a new one, I snap it up and give it a whirl.
Cool.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, a little segue here. Hopefully you can maybe send me a track, but I know something about Niilo, and a few close friends know that he likes to make music on the side for fun. Some EDM type, pop type style music. I look for it. I don't know. We'll get to like your social media presence in a second, right after this. But yeah, I couldn't find it. I really want to get it, and I tried to bug Sarah a little bit to get it. She's like, "Oh, I don't know which ones are really good and which ones you might want to send to me." So I was like, I'd like to play something. So hopefully you can send me one so I can play a little bit here. Tell me how you. Yeah, go ahead.
No. Yeah. It's been a thing that I've been working on for like years and years. And again, my problem with it is that it's never intended on being like a professional thing. It's more like, I used to draw a lot when I was a kid, and I think I've kind of replaced that kind of meditative, relaxing kind of the thing to do with music instead of drawing now. And so, yeah, I've been doing it for, probably about 20 years now, but I never typically finish tracks. Like I always just sort of start them, and they get to that certain point where there's enough parts where they're kind of going together where it could be the meat and potatoes of a track, but then I never really move on to the stage where I'm kind of doing the different parts and adding all the sort of stuff that would turn it from being a kind of an idea into a full-fledged track. And to me, that's fine, because that's the most fun. And I'm not doing it for any kind of professional, project, or I'm not doing it for money. It's just for me. It's just kind of a therapeutic process, and I find it really fulfilling and very nerdy. And it's it's just a nice pastime. But certainly I've got sort of short tracks, which, I'll send you something. I don't know how good it'll be, but you'll get a taste of the kind of stuff that a lot of times gets kind of weird. But it's not so weird that it's some kind of weird ambient thing, and it's hard to listen to. It's usually kind of poppy, and I try to make it a little bit catchy. And sometimes it's a little bit somber, but such is life.
Yeah, I've always kind of looked up to people that can compose, because me being like a pianist and playing like Royal Conservatory type music growing up and everything like that, I don't know, I just thought it was so hard to like compose a whole song and everything. I never got into that, just playing, but that would look like such a big hill to climb.
Well, and I would say, for someone like me who is entirely self-taught in the whole music kind of spectrum thing, I played drums for like 10 years when I was growing up, and I had like lessons for a couple months, but I really wanted to learn how to read music, but the guy wasn't the right guy to teach me that. And I wasn't necessarily the best student either. I was younger. I was probably a little more stubborn even than I am now. And so that's kind of tricky. So I think that's probably why I'm able to do it, because I don't really know what I'm doing. It's just purely explorative, and you having a base in actual, music and doing things properly, understand how complex it is. And it could probably feel very daunting, but for me, it's kind of like I'm just sort of going along my merry way, probably making tons of mistakes. But I just, I don't have that musical foundation from an educational standpoint. So it's just wherever my mind wants to take me. And so sometimes it takes me into boring places, really bland kind of, tracks, and sometimes you hit on one and you're like, wow, this is actually really, really nice. So that's kind of how it is for me. It's just a very loose kind of experience, I guess. So yeah, and I don't feel hindered.
And why the genre? Do you have any influences like growing up or anything like that? EDM?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, like I always listened to kind of rock-based kind of music. So, I mean, my dad listened to tons of like rock, like getting like folk rock, and even into like bluesy rock, but mainly kind of a rock focus. Which I find a lot of my stuff still has that kind of roots and kind of very simple rhythms and that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, once I went away to college, I started hearing. I think the one that changed it for me was Kid A by Radiohead. Where before they were kind of more rocky, maybe with a little bit of kind of electronic influences. But when I saw what they did with that electronic music, then that sort of opened up a whole door and or a whole world for me to kind of explore that kind of music and listen to different things. And I was introduced to all kinds of things that were, again, not too far away from what I've been listening to before. And then, gradually into really weird stuff. And so that was kind of the journey. But yeah, I mean, in high school, it was only punk music. That's all I listened to, basically. So yeah, just an interesting journey. I think that every genre has artists in there that like anyone could listen to. I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, I could never listen to country," but yeah, I mean, if you just need a bridge artist from what you're listening to that can kind of transition you into that, and maybe open your ears to something else, and that's certainly what happened for me. So yeah, just got to keep your ears open and try new things. Yeah.
Yep. All right, let's get to the hockey stuff. You know what? I don't like to throw mean words, but Niilo, you son of a b. Yeah. I don't know how or what or why, but I have a hockey pool. I've been doing it for I don't know how long now, over 15 years. But Niilo seems to always somehow win every so often. You bastard. What's up with that?
Sentiment. Well, I mean, hey, like I said, I am coming at this from a different angle than everyone else because I think most of the people, well, actually, I'm not sure, but I think a lot of the people in the pool are probably way more knowledgeable about hockey than I am. Like I said, like I used to follow it a lot more when I was a kid, trading cards, that kind of thing. But as I grew older, I kind of just spent most of my time doing other things, and I used to like to watch just in the playoffs. And so I mean, I originally started in the pool by doing, what maybe a lot of people would do is, you try and go through the stats and you find the best players. And I would, cherry pick whoever I could, depending on the draft order from those teams, and just kind of pick the best people, your Sidney Crosbys and that kind of thing. But then eventually I thought, well, that's not necessarily a winning strategy. It's kind of like a safe bet. But that safe bet doesn't win it for you. So I just figured, well, what if you just put all your eggs in one basket? I mean, sure, it's risky, but that just means that your team is potentially collecting points the entire way through. Now, it's a tough thing to choose who's going to go to the end. Obviously, it's a crapshoot, but doing it the other way is almost for sure going to make sure that you're not going to get to the end if someone does choose the strategy that I've suggested. So anyways, then the better strategy from that standpoint I found was to try and figure out the two best teams that are going to make it all the way to the end, and then just pick from those two teams. And that hasn't worked every time because sometimes those teams don't win. But if nobody else has done that strategy, you're absolutely going to win, even if one of your guys or if one of your teams of the two that you choose makes it all the way to the end, because they're racking up the points. But again, it's a tough one. And then to further complicate things, you have people in your draft who are, if they're savvy and they don't want you to win, I don't know if it gets that deep with our group, but they could maybe try and see what you're onto, and then maybe try and start picking, to strategically ruin your chances of, stacking your team with all the best players from a given team. Yeah. So, and the 2 years that I did win, I had chosen mostly players from Chicago, and then they happened to win. And then the last time I think I picked Boston guys, and then it was like a double whammy. Although they didn't win, because I was with St. Louis.
Yeah. Well, what Niilo's really trying to overanalyze, I think, about how he won. It's pretty much because he's a big fan of the Bruins, and he picked the Bruins, and the Bruins won. That's two times why he won. Maybe even the other time that you didn't win, you got like third place, and it was because of the Bruins. So, yeah. I think that's pretty much it. And he's overcompensating with why
for sure.
And that's why. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I don't know what I'm doing. This is just where I'm at now. But really, I haven't had the champagne championship, which for me would be choosing all Bruins, and then the Bruins win, so that it's like my team, and I win it. That would be amazing. So I'm still chasing that, but then after that, it's like I don't know where you go from there.
What do you mean? You did do that. That was a few years ago, right?
Yeah, but they didn't win though. I don't think I had. No, because they won in 2011, so I don't think I got it then.
I'll have to check that again, but I don't know. Either way, it doesn't matter if they go to the finals. You're still collecting the points. There's no difference between them winning and then that and back and forth. So yes, I guess what I think I know what you mean. You want them to win and you to win at the same time.
Yeah,
so,
of course. I mean, that's the dream, isn't it? I mean, that's a double whammy right there.
Yeah. But yeah, you've done really well so far. So let's get into your raised and born South Porcupine, Ontario. How and why are you a Bruins fan?
Yeah, so I mean, we had, like I said, we lived in an area. It was actually called Fintown, which is a small little hamlet of 5 houses that is just off the edge of the South Porcupine city limits or town limits. And so it was a pretty quiet place to kind of grow up. There was all kind of older people in the other houses, no other kids. So when one year our family had moved in a couple doors down, and they were from BC. And so the oldest was my friend that I kind of mostly hung around with. His name was Trevor, and he loved Cam Neely, and he was a few years older than me. So of course, everything that he liked, I liked because I looked up to him. And so he said he loved the Bruins and he loved Cam Neely because Cam Neely's from comics out in BC. I guess that's probably the association, but and also he's an amazing player. But yeah, so I mean, ever since then, like I couldn't get out of that mode of liking the Bruins. It just seemed like sacrilegious at some point. So despite constantly getting into low level arguments with my brother and dad, who are both hardcore Leafs fans, it's just like, yeah, I couldn't conceive of a parallel universe in which I would like the Leafs. I just can't. It's just impossible to me. I just can't like them. I'm living here and I hate them and I always want them to lose. And that's that. I mean, it's a rivalry that will never die between my brother and dad and then myself. Yeah. So which is a bit crazy. It's a bit insane. Maybe if they open an expansion team here, I've heard rumblings that they're, Toronto may one day get a second team. Who knows? I mean, you would know a lot more about that than I would.
Yeah.
Maybe then.
Yeah. Well, we'll see about that. I know the NHL and the Maple Leafs organization has a little bit more control about what happens within a certain radius of the team. So, yeah, sure. I've been wanting that for years. But let's get into now and what you think about. Have you heard about the new rules? What they're thinking about doing 2014 playoffs? The Bruins, who are technically like 10 points above the next best team in the standings, but now looks like they might have to play a mini round robin or mini series to finalize the top 4 spots, who are technically already in the playoffs before the play-in round. Is it fair? Do you know about what's going on?
Just lightly. I've only just seen kind of headlines, and I mean, Sarah's been razzing me because, like lately I've just kind of skimmed through articles, but there's so much stuff going on, with the politics in the States and this whole thing. So as I read stuff, I'm generally only getting titles and stuff. So I'm not getting to the goods, the real goods in the article. So I'm not 100% up on that. I mean, to me, I'm not like a diehard guy. So I'm just happy if we can see more hockey and see the playoffs, even if it's, a different format. So I know some diehards would be like, no, this is not the right thing. But for me, I mean, I just want to see some hockey again in whatever format. Definitely missing it this year, even though, like I said, I'm not as hardcore as some people. It's just like, oh God, when it's not there, you really miss it. Yeah. And and I just think it'll be an asterisk season, and that's fine. I mean, it's better than nothing. And so, yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing something hopefully soon.
Yeah. So yeah, it looks like it might be happening. They're not putting any dates, and that seems appropriate for sure. But maybe August this season, if they even the playoffs at least, if they even do it, might actually end in like October. It's crazy. It is the world that we are in right now.
Yeah.
But with 24 teams, are you gonna still think about going with your usual format of going a lot of 2 teams and Bruins and stuff like that? Or that's crazy.
I don't know.
24 teams.
I might have to go rogue on this one. I don't know. I mean, I'll have to see at the time, and maybe I have to come up with some other kind of crazy thing. But yeah, I think the general strategy is the only one that kind of makes sense to me, is to kind of just stack them up. But again, it's not really, it's at the mercy of who else is drafting at the same time, Yep. So, but yeah, no, it's going to be very interesting. It'll be a fun thing to play with. So
yeah.
Looking forward to it.
For sure. I've decided already that I'm probably going to add like 2-3 more players for the drafts, because it's 24 teams instead of 16. And that there will be a rule that you have to take at least a few from the play-in round and a few from the teams that are technically already in the playoffs. So it evens it out at least, too. Makes more sense.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I like it.
Yep. Yeah. All right. That's it for this interview, Niilo. Thank you for joining us on the pod. Anything you wanted to pitch or say or mention about how we're in this world today, or what you've been up to lately?
Yeah, not much. I mean, I'm just really feeling way more positive than I think I usually am just about things in general. I just want to, I want everything to kind of go back to normal. I want people who are feeling sick now, hopefully, to get better. And I just want everyone to, I just want everyone to hopefully get through this as unscathed as possible, so that we can kind of get back to what we normally do, which is, spending more time with people. And I think that's the main thing. That, I mean, I think people were growing more isolated because of social media, that kind of thing, and doing too much stuff online. So hopefully this is a way to bring people back together, because it's one of the best parts of life. So nothing to pitch. I got no new shows, no albums coming out, no new movies. So just a general positive message, which is, I know, really awkward for me, but that's what I feel. So anyways, thanks for having me. This is fun.
Cool. Oh, I did want to quickly go back, because I was looking into your social media stuff. So it seems like, did you scrub? Is somebody stalking you? It looks like you scrubbed your Twitter, and that your Twitter's empty. And even on my Facebook, I think you took me off as a friend, and I was like, oh my god.
No.
What is
no.
this?
If that happened, that was just the kids playing with my phone. I would never take you off. No way. Twitter, I just pulled everything out because I wasn't using it, and I just wanted to keep an account so I could look up other stuff that was going on there. But I'm not generally on there, and it wasn't a successful platform for me. Some people really do well on there, and for me, it just didn't work out. So I just pulled stuff off. I had some negative stuff on there too. I'd always complain if the TTC was late, and it's kind of like, I don't want to put that message out there. I mean, it's like, why, Yeah. I mean, people going back, in the future centuries, and they're looking up some old white guy named Niilo Autio, and they're going to be looking on there, and they're going to be reading tweets like, what the F is going on? How come there's no streetcars? And it's like, we don't need that. We don't need that.
Oh, man.
So,
in the future, there's going to be a beautiful statue of Barack Obama, and people are going to want to tear it down, because that guy was not vegan. That guy was eating animals when he was in his 30s. Tear that down. So
who knows all the things we're saying now, which will be viewed as horrible in the future,
Yeah.
So.
All right. On that point, again, thank you, Niilo, for joining us on the pod today.
Thanks for having me. Had a great time.
It was great hearing from Niilo. I love how he really enjoys his work. He takes time to put excellence into it, as well as his hobbies, from drinking unique beer and making his own music. Wow, this is really amazing. Great job, Niilo. Keep up with the good tunes. All right, everybody. I know things are really rough out there, but please, if you can, take the time more with your loved ones if you can. Call, Zoom, FaceTime with them if you can't. Also, help out a person in need today. Go out of your way and help out a person or a minority. Anything and everything helps. Even if it's just a small chat, or helping a person across the street, or giving an opportunity to raise their voices. Let them be heard. Listen to them. Help them out. All right, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for listening to our Isolated Friends series. For next episode, we'll have more Isolated Friends. We're going to keep this series going. Please rate, subscribe and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find podcasts. Go in that web browser or in your podcasting app and type in JABLAM Sports. That's Jablam Sports. And click subscribe. And then please click on the 3 dots and share our podcast on social media and to 3 hockey fans you know. Also, check out our website, jablamsports.com. Click on podcasts and then click on Jablam Sports Hockey and you'll get all our old episodes. And of course, tweet us on Twitter at Jablam Sports. And you can also use the hashtag Jablam Sports if you like. We want your help. Please tweet us or go to our contact page on our website. Tell us what you like about our show or you don't like. Let us know what you want to know more about hockey. We want you, the listener, to have more control of what you hear on this show. Again, thank you for your support, everyone. I'm your host, Peter Bojaranov, at Russian98, RUSSIAN 98 on Twitter, signing off for Jablam Sports Hockey. See you again next week, everyone.